That is so awesome. I just want to take the time to say I appreciate you for being that, shining light for others that are, looking to gain a new perspective, so that they can lead more satisfying life. It's not easy.
No.
And definitely want to show the gratitude, when I am able to. So much love and light your way. I appreciate you so much. Definitely for showing up today, because, we're not always promised every day. So we planned this day, and I'm happy that we made it to this day.
Absolutely.
And now we can, dive deeper into creating a more loving experience for how we deal with relationships and breakups.
Yeah. Sorry, you were saying,
To
sorry,
help, yeah, to help create a more loving experience.
how to create a more loving experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, it starts with honestly really thinking about the fact that both people in the relationship are human, are people with their own desires, wishes, concerns, expectations. I think that when you think of yourself and realize that you have things that you want and don't want in a relationship, and that you have things that you want and don't want for your life, if you can apply that to another person and say, okay, this other person in this relationship with me is also an individual with their own desires, wants, and needs. All of these things um, help you to start out from a foundation of this person um, is my teammate. They're not an enemy. They're not an adversary. Because I do think
Mm.
that a lot of times in relationships, especially as the relationship starts to not go so well or deteriorate, individuals in the relationship can tend to start looking at one another as adversaries. And I always try to help them, remember that they're ideally wanting to be teammates, or at least so we think. So the idea is, if you do want to be teammates, what are things that foster a team mentality? And that's, showing that you care about somebody. That's the way you speak to someone. That's letting them know um, that you are interested in what they need. And that's also communicating clearly your needs. So it really starts from that foundation of realizing that just as I have wants, needs, and desires as a person, this other person does as well.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I touch base a lot with another guest host on the episode about language, healing from the language of love, the love language, healing the love language. And understanding that, we like, and I've been telling this to people as well, that I am human. I am a person. I have my own feelings and emotions.
Right.
And I'm not here, for me personally, my perspective in life is I know that we are all here to be interconnected and help each other. So I work very hard on helping people to see that that is me, um, internally and externally. It's very important to, love yourself the same way that you want to love others.
Mm-hmm.
And when I've been in my breakups, I recently just went through a breakup, so I can really be speaking from personal experience. And I didn't personally want to break up with the person. I just told them that certain things needed to change,
Right.
and they were not accepting of what I needed. So we became those adversaries, and it just was counterproductive from that moment on.
Right.
And I don't know how to get them to respond in a loving way.
Yeah. And I think that's a big part of it, that acknowledgement and acceptance that we are limited in our ability to influence how somebody responds to something
Mm-hmm.
and how they behave. We can't control anyone's behavior but our own. The best we can do is attempt to positively influence other people by giving our thoughts and opinions and advice and offering our support. but then they have to take it from there. So I always say with people that you ultimately cannot control how somebody receives something from you. You can only control how you deliver it. And so we should attempt to deliver any information in as respectful and clear and honest a manner as possible. But then it is left up to that other person in terms of how they interpret it, which is based on a number of factors. It can be experiences, it can be, their value system, it can be their opinions and thoughts of you. All of these things influence how we receive information. But to the point of how do I lovingly bring up pretty much, issues or concerns in a relationship, I see it from two ways. There's the preventative measure, which I'll get into more, and it's more about before you go into a relationship or as you go into a relationship so that you can set the foundation as clearly as possible. But then there's the method of having to kind of deal with what you're currently experiencing, meaning you're already in the relationship and you realize things are not the way you want them to be. Going back to my point of each person has their desires and expectations, it really is a conversation about that ultimately. Meaning you can come to someone and say, these are the things that I was looking for or hoping for in the relationship and that I expected, and really talk about whether you were clear on these expectations or not. And oftentimes with relationships, what happens is there are a lot of unspoken expectations because we feel that somebody should know something or that they think and feel the same way as us or that they want the same things. And the reality of a situation, it may not be very romantic, but the reality of a situation is that a relationship is a contract. And so when you think of like a legal contract, there's all these terms that are written down and that are verbalized. Everyone gets to read it and you negotiate and you sign on the dotted line, right?
Yep.
But in a relationship, we don't sit down and write these things all on paper and say, okay, you're going to agree to this, this, and this, and sign it. But the truth of the matter is, in our own minds, we do have these expectations. They're just not written on paper. And so what we think is that this partner is, they're in essence, they're agreeing to our terms as they continue to engage with us and be a part of our lives. Some of the expectations are verbalized, like, hey, I'd like to have 2 kids someday and I want to live in a house here and there. And other expectations are just never said because honestly, we don't even think to say them.
Yeah.
And I always say with couples that, so then issues aren't an issue until they're an issue, meaning there can be expectations that you both have that you both already agree on. So it never comes up as a problem because you're both going along your way. And these things never show up as an issue because you're both doing the same thing. But then there are those things where you realize this person's doing it this way or wants it this way and you want it another way. And those become the things that bring people, for instance, into couples therapy, being like, okay, I'm not happy with this or with that. And I just always explain to people that ultimately a vast majority of couples issues are not about someone being, objectively right or wrong. There are some things for sure, like especially when we're talking about like physical abuse or things like that. But generally speaking, it's that each person has their expectations. And if they were just single, that expectation would be just fine. But now that you're in a relationship with another person, because your expectation differs from theirs, now it's an issue, but not necessarily because one person's right or wrong. To use a very basic example, like, it's this idea of like you're living on your own and you want to paint your walls blue and the other person living on their own, they want to paint them green. Nothing's wrong with either of those in and of themselves, right? But you move in together, now we have an issue about what color we're going to paint the walls. Like that's a very, simplified example, but that's really what so many couples issues do come down to, is a realization that, oh my goodness, we don't have the same expectations on this thing. And then issues. So
yeah, it's I have learned that a lot of it is because on a totality we're living life so quickly. Even we're now in this era, we are trying to live life very quickly in our relationships, to where like we meet someone and immediately, especially when we're in our 30s where we already have a life that's situated, we immediately want to figure out how to work someone into our life to where they're living with us already.
Yep.
And we don't take the proper precautions of getting to know someone and or we don't even take into consideration how much actual time we used to spend with people when we were younger in high school. You know, we were literally either in the same school, in the same classes, in the same group of friends. So we literally saw each other within more time frames, more hours when we were
Right.
children than we are as adults.
Yep, absolutely.
So we want to create um, this thought in our head that, you know, I have been a victim of it as well, that, you know, you want to fall in love in a month. And now it could be true that you could fall in love in a month, but you have to actually be spending a month worth of time with a person, not just because, oh, we met December 1st and by December 31st we're in love just because of the little bit of time we spent together. As
Right.
adults, we really have to lengthen that time to where if we fell in love with someone